Hey and welcome to a new video. Today I will give you advice on how to learn a new track. If you have no idea what to do when you are leaving the pits for the first time and spend hours before you feel confident enough to race, then this video will hopefully make your life easier. I will showcase a strategy which helped me a lot in the past and saved me many hours of practice. It helps you to identify the racing line and find the limits in 3 easy steps. Nowadays I don't need more than 10 laps before I can start to push for fast lap times. Oh, and by the way, this is one of many questions I got asked since I started the channel, be it in the comments or on our community Discord. I decided to start a guide series which features your most asked questions. So don't hesitate if there's something you want to know. Share your question in the comments below and I will try to pick it up for future videos. Enough talking, it's time to make a fast sim racer out of you. Technically, picking the car is the first step, but it's not part of the strategy, so we just call it step 0.5. How quick you can learn a new track depends on your knowledge about the car you are driving. If you know the limits of your car, it's far easier to figure out the limits of the track. That's why you should always pick a car you feel confident with whenever you want to learn a new circuit. This will help you a lot and cut the time you need to understand the new track by a significant amount. It's also the reason why beginners often feel overwhelmed when they join official races for the first time. Learning a new track every week is hard enough, but having to learn a new car at the same time will slow down the progress. That's why you shouldn't switch between many cars until you mastered at least one of them. Once you pick the car of your choice, you are ready for step 1. Discover the track. The first thing you want to do is take a slow lap around the track. Your goal for the first step is to figure out how the track actually looks and feels like. The most obvious things you want to check are the braking zones and possible markers. Look out for signs, trees, buildings, anything that could help you to hit a consistent braking point. Once you enter the turns, you want to focus on your wheel. All tracks in iRacing are laser scanned, which means that they will have a few unique characteristics. Some turns will be bumpy, which can make it hard to keep the car at the limit. Other turns can be banked, which can make it difficult to keep the car on the racing line. Spot as many details as you can and observe what the car is doing. Besides the track itself, there are also a few iRacing specific things which you want to track down. The track limits and the geometry of the curbs. Cut the corners until you find the track limits. You always want to race at the limit, that's why you always want to drive as close to the X1 incident penalty as possible. The earlier you can figure out where the track limits are, the less time you will waste with learning incorrect lines. We all know the surprising feeling when you find out that a certain runoff area can be used without a penalty, and trust me, it's better to find it out during your first practice runs than your first race. Finally, you can use the slow laps to develop a feeling for the curbs. Some curbs look dangerous, but they won't do anything to your car at all, while others look unimpressive, but once you drive over them, your car will be toast. Now you have the chance to drive slowly over them to test out the limits, which will save you many resets to the pits. In summary, you want to use the first laps to visualize the track in your mind. Find markers, identify the track limits, explore the surface of the track, and get a feeling for the curbs. That way you build a solid foundation for learning and can move on to step number 2. Find the acceleration points. Yes, the acceleration points. The points where you want to step on the throttle and accelerate out of the turn. If you watched any of my track guides, you may know that I stress this over and over again. You want to be early on the throttle out of almost every turn. Being early on the throttle nets you time all the way down to the next braking point. The gained time adds up, and in the end it makes the difference between a great lap and a casual drive around the track. Figuring out the braking points first is one of the most common mistakes beginners tend to do. It looks tempting to brake later and later and push harder into the braking zones, but without knowing the acceleration points, this will lead only to overdriving the car on the entry and losing a ton of time on the exit. That's why you want to ignore the braking points. Brake early and take your time to slow down the car. You want to aim for a decent turn-in speed and try to find the earliest points where you can step on the throttle again and get away with it, without crossing the track limits and without spinning the car. That way you get closer and closer to the limit, up to the point where you feel confident that you get the most out of every exit. Once you reach that point, you are ready for the last step. Optimize the braking zones. In the first step you figured out how the track looks like and which markers you can use. In the second you learned when you want to be back on the throttle, and all you need to do now is to fit the braking zones into the pattern and you've mastered the track. The last step is obvious, and if you know your car, it's the easiest one as well. It doesn't matter on which track you are driving, your car's deceleration is always the same. When you know that you need roughly 200 meters to slow down from top speed to first gear, the same will apply on any other track unless the track goes up or downhill. This last step is full of experiments. You can play around with different braking patterns. Try to be aggressive on the brakes or soft. Transition into trail braking sooner or later. You can try different downshift patterns as well. Downshifting as soon as possible activates the engine brake and the car decelerates faster, while staying in higher gears gives you more control over your speed. And you can also try different braking lines. This can depend on the techniques you want to use, or maybe there are bumps in the surface or curbs which you want to dodge. Everything you try should always focus on maximizing the braking zone without sacrificing your exit. Optimize the last piece in the puzzle, and when you feel confident, you are ready to register for your first race, because that's it. Discover the track, find the acceleration points, and optimize the braking zones. You can use this checklist whenever you feel stuck and wonder why you lose time in certain sectors. In most cases, the answer lies hidden in one of those areas. Maybe you don't have great markers, maybe you are too late on the throttle, or maybe you lose time on the brakes. This strategy also helps you to learn from your opponents in your races or when you check the replay. Using the list from top to bottom to analyze their laps helps you to pinpoint the key moments where you lose time. If you should still feel stuck on a certain track or with certain sectors, then you should come around and visit our community Discord. We have a feedback channel there where you can post your lap to receive feedback, which will help you to find additional time. That's it for today's video. I hope this strategy helps you. Feel free to check out the video YouTube offers you if you want to stick around. Huge thanks to all subscribers on Twitch, YouTube members and patrons who are supporting my content. Thanks for watching, I wish you a great week and see you next time!